I'm currently a junior doctor working in the NHS, in the busy NHS during the coronavirus times.
Mm-hmm.
I was fortunate enough to meet one of my close friends from university, who we met each other since, 2011. His name is Sermed, and I would love to get our conversations and explore his background on video, because I think his story is genuinely quite inspiring, and I hope to use it to touch other people's lives. So, welcome, Sermed.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me. That was a very kind introduction. I wasn't expecting that at all.
Genuinely my pleasure. Honestly, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, it was a very nice surprise running back into Dapo after not seeing each other since uni.
Yeah, because it was third or fourth year when we went to different hospitals that things changed. But we were always cool, and then we did our foundation years and all that. But seeing on a trauma ward where you're not expecting to see someone, it changes the whole professionalism.
It was brilliant.
Absolutely. So, sorry, boss. So I think the first thing I want to do is, for the people who are listening, just try and go back to the start. Before university, talk a bit about your childhood and what made you want to choose medicine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'd say I've always been interested in science. Although when I was leading up to my GCSEs and A-levels, which are about year 9, year 10, I wasn't 100% sure really of what direction I would take, because even though I did like biology, chemistry, I felt like I was more naturally inclined to maths, and I ended up doing one of my A-level maths modules a little bit early, and I did fairly well in that. But as I kind of got to my A-levels and I saw that my elder sister was going into medicine, it seemed quite interesting to me that I could actually combine the really theoretical side of science with the actual practical side of dealing with people on a day-to-day basis. And I thought that would be quite a fun way to apply myself. I remember initially when I told my sister I wanted to do medicine, I think she was just doing her foundation years at the time, and I'm sure, as you know,
she was doing her foundation.
I know, foundation is
not the easiest. So she's 5-6 years older than you.
Yeah.
And did she give you any advice about whether to do medicine or not?
Yeah. Okay. So at the time, because she was doing foundation, which for those of you that don't know is pretty much a torture camp. Not to undermine anyone who's actually been to a torture
Medicine's
camp,
great, guys.
But she said, run, don't do it. Anything but medicine. But being a stubborn child, I was set on my path, and I thought, right, she told me it's hard, so of course I'm going to do it, right? And here I am.
Nothing ever prepares you,
Nothing ever prepares you.
I think as children, you people can't say no if you've got if you've got your ideas to, and you can never ever truly understand, because yes, it's your experience, but it could have been great for another FY2 or FY doing it, so it's hard. But your theoretical experience and practical application was why you thought, medicine might be a good shout.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, I did quite enjoy some person-to-person contact, and I thought of myself as quite a social person, and I thought that would be the right thing for me to do.
Yeah. Where did you grow up?
In Bradford.
Bradford.
AKA Bradistan.
What was Bradford?
I haven't named it that, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure you haven't.
It says it on the sign, which means it's an official name.
Oh, well, I don't know what. I've not heard it. But I've heard of Bradford or Bradistan. But what was Bradford like growing up?
Bradford was an interesting place. I'd say the school I went to was comparatively quite deprived to many of those around the area, and definitely compared to the ones that most others that were in medical school came from. So I think I had quite a unique experience there. It did have its challenges, but I don't want to focus on those too much. I'd say one of the interesting parts, or at least the benefits that it gave me, was it taught me how to really be down to earth.
Okay.
And to not take things for granted, because I saw quite a lot of poverty there. And they also put a lot of time and energy and focus into trying to help me as well.
So who are they?
Because the school.
Okay.
So the teachers there, and I think because they saw that my parents had pushed me quite hard academically, and my sisters before me had done decently well in the school. We had a bit of a reputation in our family there. So my sister's face ended up being on the front of the school, and then
like the academic mafia.
Yeah, pretty much. And then I ended up having like this massive blown up picture of me on the side of the school, which my mum vowed that she would put on our house as soon as the school took it down, but thankfully the head teachers didn't let her do that. But I ended up being a bit of a mini celebrity in Bradford, at least at that time when my picture was up, because I'd go to football and people would come to me and say, "Oh, you're that guy from Challenge! Oh wow!
You did Challenge.
It's like, hey, come on here! Go.
You did Challenge.
This is the Challenge guy.
Yeah. What was Challenge? Because I don't think
Challenge was the name of my school.
Oh, I see.
It was called Challenge College.
Oh, fine. I thought Challenge was one of those, those aptitude tests that you do, those sort of higher application maths tests that were national.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember what they're called now. No. So Challenge was a school.
Yeah, it's called Challenge College.
A Challenge College, but
even though it's rebranded now, I think it had some difficulties with Ofsted. So, it's now called Oasis Academy or something like that.
Maybe Challenge would have been slightly inappropriate in the times that we live in now.
Yeah, very true.
So your parents definitely played a huge part in your academic success in the early ages. Why do you think your parents put so much emphasis on academia?
Good question. So both of my parents were academic in themselves because they met when they were studying electronic engineering.
Okay.
In northern Iraq.
Okay.
And both my dad and my mom come from quite privileged backgrounds, and I think that they saw that one of the key determinants of how successful someone will be is education.
Ability,
And they always said, do what you'll do, but focus on studies and get good grades, and then as long as you go to university and you succeed there, then basically the rest of your life will be so much easier. I listened to obviously what they taught me, but I think it's only now that I realize how important that advice was, because at least in today's kind of situation and crisis that's going on, I think, I don't know how you feel, Dapo, but I feel quite fortunate to be working in healthcare where I don't have to worry about the security of my job.
I guess that's it, isn't it? So if we flip the script and you're almost like you're talking to me, my journey into medicine was slightly different. I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do. I still don't know where my career is heading, but
who does?
Who does? But no. But I had the power of a really strong parents, especially my mother, who said, "Look, Daps, just try it. Try medicine, and see how you do." Unfortunately, I got the grades. I managed to do it second time round. We got through it, and you are so happy that not happy is the wrong word, but in light of the whole coronavirus situation, and how expendable you really are, especially in the private sector. It at least gives you some platform, some footstool to at least know that you have some stability moving forward. I mean, whether you believe in the whole concept of stability or, you know, or if you can guarantee job is up to you. But my peace is the fact that my parents' words weren't wrong, and I couldn't be who I was for good and for bad without them. So I love them, and I'm fundamentally so happy that they pushed me into medical school. Not pushed me, but you know what I mean, they gently nudged, as ethnic parents do. Gently nudged.
I definitely know where you're coming from with that.
So, but I guess like we both are, we're in our mid to late 20s now. It's just, this is a chance that we do what we want to do now. So that's where our autonomy can really come in. But yeah, I hear you. I hear you definitely.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think with autonomy comes also quite a large burden in a way, because at least, you know, for the majority of our lives, especially doing medicine, we had a very set path that we could follow. And all of a sudden you've graduated, you've done your initial training, and you've been given all of this choice, and it's a question of whether that choice is actually helpful to us, or does it cause a lot of difficulty in direction? Because we're always kind of fighting for and imagining freedom, but maybe kind of complete freedom is actually quite a difficult thing to handle, because you lack direction when you have freedom. I know at least probably the first time I really felt freedom is when I'd finished medical school, and I went off on my elective, and I had some time to just travel around. I had 3 months to, you know, explore North America. And I saw, you know, Mexico, the US, Canada, and it was great. I met loads of fantastic people, some of who might be watching this right now. And if you are, hello. And I even made a video about it. So,
oh God!
Maybe I'll link that here. But the difficult part of that was, after about 2 months, I started thinking to myself, what am I doing here? And am I achieving anything?
With your absolute freedom?
Yeah. You know, I'm traveling around, I'm seeing lots of new places, but eventually, after seeing, you know, new city after new city after new city, it became quite a repetitive process.
That's really interesting.
And I didn't feel like I was achieving anything or helping anyone.
I see.
Whilst doing that, I don't know. I think maybe it's just the type of person that I am. I might be a slight bit of a workaholic, but
maybe. But if we go back, so would you say you were a bit of a workaholic at school, and did that change during uni?
I'd say I was a gamerholic. Yeah, if anyone else uses that word, you have to cite me. So I mean, work at school was definitely not my priority. I played a game called World of Warcraft, and if anyone knows that game, it is like the black hole of lives. You know, it just sucks you in and it doesn't let you back out. Although it was a lot of fun, and it taught me some, you know, really good like skills, logic, deduction, strategy, whatever. But that's where I spent most of my
this is a battle
high school years.
It's a black hole because anecdotally, whatever you say, boys in gaming and boys and distraction, it's a real limiter to their success at times. And I guess that's the real question for you. How did you balance because I remember, like Christian, one of my other friends, gamed a lot, active in sport, but we still managed to get very, very good grades. So what do you think it was for you that when it came to crunch time, made sure that you got the grades that you needed to go to for the next level?
Yeah.
Sorry,
I
that's
guess
a lot. Yeah.
no. It's a very, very good question, and I guess it comes down to the fact that nobody can game 24 hours a day, and if you come from a background where academia is very, very important,
Yeah.
then at least during your school hours, where it's impossible for you to game, really. I mean, I don't know.
Nowadays.
Games consoles are getting more and more portable. They weren't when we were younger, so maybe that brings its own unique challenge.
Let me just, do you want me to interrupt
Yeah,
you?
go on.
So I saw this 17-year-old kid on the ward the other day. And this is the problem. A lot of my stories start with, I saw there's some ridiculous trauma that's happened. So this kid, I think, broke his leg. He was on a ward. He was a kid, so like whether he was a bit rude, he kind of just said he was growing pains metaphorically.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, like he's just about to be discharged. I'm seeing this guy with a PlayStation 4 controller on his laptop playing whatever game he was. I was like, this is madness. How does that work? He's like, you know what, bro? You know what I got, mate? I was like, I just managed to link my PS4 with my computer, so that's all I can do. I can just do it when I'm at home. I'm like, all right, fine. Like, I thought maybe I could, for professional reasons, see if I could learn how he does that, but he left before I managed to.
Oh, what a shame!
but I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Like,
yeah.
Maybe you could argue that it's easier to do what we'd like to do for fun. Like, it's a microcosm of an example. But do you see my point? You could easily take games to school, play games with your friends. Next thing you know, you spent your whole semester, you spent your whole playground, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess you could think about it in any other way, though. Games I think are just one of many potential distractors that you can have across the spectrum of life and procrastination, and whether it's games or violence or drugs or anything, it essentially comes down to a difference in priority, where people who exceed and excel differ from those who fail and struggle. And I guess the question is, how do you change the priority of those who do not see education as important?
Okay.
And I think that would help you to answer the question. Because as soon as you change that person's priorities, all of a sudden their actions will also change. What they spend their time on will also change.
So I guess to maybe extrapolate, you really believe in the power of the individual and the power of the individual to choose what they want to do. And it's only when they say, cool, this is what I want, can you see the most change or maybe the most progress in a direction that is structurally beneficial for themselves and potentially for society.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to expand on that a little bit and dissect down into what I mean by the power of the individual, as you said quite nicely. I think that when it comes down to what really makes a person, you cannot discount their environment. Just as I said that it was my parents who helped to build that academic nature within me. That's why I think this kind of idea of an individual's choice can be heavily influenced, and what we need to do is find a way to do that to the parts of society that are failing. And I think that would help to bring everyone up as you said, to help society as a whole. And a lot of the time, I've seen some of my friends, they talk about, schools like Eton, which are really exclusive, and, in exactly as you say, like pie in the sky dream for someone that comes from a deprived background. And they say that these institutions need to close and they're not fair. How can some people have that kind of education and others are struggling in the depths of society? But I don't think it's about bringing those at the top down. I think it's about bringing those at the bottom up. And if we find a way to motivate students, then we can do that. And I think a big part of that, because we can't really influence their family surroundings, at least as like an establishment. But what we can do is change the school environment.
That's a really fair point.
We, like teachers, for example, have been sort of systematically neglected for many years. And there were teachers' strikes which happened a few years ago to basically reject the mistreatment that they've been having and the poor wages, and the long hours,
the ever-increasing workload.
Ever-increasing workload, as happens with many public sector workers, which we definitely know about as public sector workers.
Absolutely.
So I think it's about really giving those teachers back the reasons why they became teachers, and inspiring them to produce change, because they're the ones that are creating the next generation of citizens in our country. But it's a question of priority, isn't it?
I guess it also helped in those, because from my own experience with going to private school. So I went to private school for the last 4 years of my education, and was in state school previously. So I really saw the difference. And yes, one could argue that the pool at private school, they were certainly more driven. They had access to facilities. I mean, access to facilities is without question, actually. I guess things that my old school used to do was they would try and pull a lot of the kids that were quote unquote gifted and talented and try to push them as a way of showing that they could try and do more, whilst not neglecting, but just saying the rest of the cohort, the rest of the peers will just get what they get, unfortunately. Well, whatever, they'll get what they get. I just wonder, it's hard for parents, and with the increase in price of general living and the fact that the two-parent household, both parties have to really work now in order to make ends meet for a lot of people. Do you think that there's anything that we could do now, if you were your parents and you had a little Sermed who's around, let's just say between 14 to 18, and you're going to a school like you did, you're going to Challenge, and you just notice that there's a gap of kids that have incredible potential, but maybe don't have the direction at school and direction at home. Have you ever considered anything that could be done? It's all hypothetical at the very least.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I wanna start by saying I think every child has incredible potential.
Agreed.
And it's just about nurturing that. So I'd say that, if I had a child and they were going to a school that was deprived, and I was trying to help them on that journey, I would pretty much try and imbue at least a protective shield from their peers. First of all, the reason being is that at least when you're a child, social influences can have a huge impact. And as much as we like to kind of neglect the idea that being in a kind of deprived area doesn't stop you from changing your future. It really does, and the statistics show that if you're born in a deprived socioeconomic area, then you are likely to die in a deprived socioeconomic area. It's very, very unlikely for people, unless they have immense ambition and drive to actually change between classes. It's the rarity. Even though there certainly is, and they are dynamic. So I would make them think like a successful person, first of all, and as soon as that happens, then eventually the world will materialize as they see themselves as a successful person. So that would be my number one priority. I guess my second point would be probably to try and give them as much private tuition as I could get them, or maybe even get them to switch schools if I could. Yeah, well, it's no accident that at least half of Oxbridge students come from private or grammar schools.
Yeah.
Even though they are the minority of the population. And so I guess at least as a parent, you might think, well, why will I struggle on when I could just take the easy path and have the school do the work for me, per se? Because it takes a lot of fight to have someone succeed from a place of or an environment of failure. But that's looking at it from a parent's perspective, where you're very, very focused on that one individual child. If you're then looking at it from a systemic perspective, and you think, oh, how do I help the most people? Then of course your focus is going to be very, very, very different. It's almost a selfish outlook, isn't it? When you think, oh, well, I'll just get my kid to move school. But
I guess it is. It's seeped in all facets. I mean, why did our parents come from our countries of birth to here? But certainly for mine, it was a better opportunity, a better life, so to speak. And yes, okay, there was a little bit of racism, but back in the day, certainly now, they probably still wouldn't regret the decision, because they've got, 5 children, 3 who are very successful, 2 who are on the way to hopefully being successful. So
fantastic.
For them, it was a
good achievement.
Well, yes and no. I'm just.
Where are you in that
parental
line? Where is Brother Dapo?
Let's not talk about success.
Are you first child, middle child,
middle child? You'll hear the middle.
Middle child syndrome.
I'm sure you'll hear a lot of middle child syndrome. Look,
I was the glowing youngest child.
How many other siblings did you have?
3 older sisters.
Wow.
And
that explains a lot.
Yeah. So only boy and youngest child. So.
I know your parents promptly stopped, isn't it?
Yeah. My sisters call me the glowing boy who can do no wrong.
Oh my gosh.
But that's besides the point. That's another thing. So yeah, as you're saying, so the parents came here for better opportunity, and they did have some challenges on the way. Obviously adapting to new culture and racism, especially. Even looking back 1 or 2 generations ago, things were crazy different compared to what they are now.
Yeah.
At least in the UK, but I guess that might lead us on to what's happening in the US right now and racism there. I just find it interesting because obviously we were talking about how the environment shapes how someone feels and what their kind of internal powers direct them towards. And obviously the school that they go to plays a huge impact in that, and also the family that they have. And I just think that there's been, systemic oppression against the black community in the US for generations, and it has really become, almost like a two-level citizen country in some areas. And it's so upsetting to see something like what happened to George Floyd happen. But I do think it is a symptom of what really is a more widespread disease, especially in the US. It also happens here, but I think it's much more above ground in the US than it is here.
That's a really interesting point. There's certainly a number of points that I agree. It's very, I guess, where it's not like I disagree, but where I would maybe challenge your point of view is there has been cases of police brutality certainly being publicised since, people could quote longer, but especially, Eric Garner cases and all of that. I think the real upset is just how internationally recognised it became. Because for some people, especially in a nuclear situation, you could argue the black community in America, they'd be like, okay, this has been going on. And it has been going on for God knows. For them, it wasn't 5 years ago where we could capture it. It's been their whole lives. Remember Jim Crow, what finished in the 1960s?
Yeah.
So and that was, segregation of people. We've also got slavery ended, 150 years ago?
Yeah.
So there's a huge amount of generational trauma that's being, in my opinion, people can maybe disagree, but fine. A lot of generational trauma, and arguably seeing the face of your oppressor every day, God knows what that does to the psyche. But what I would say, and this is where I think I do fundamentally agree with you, but maybe not for the reasons that you might say, is this is absolutely a symptom. And it's a symptom of the state of what it means to be black within the international globe, in my opinion. That my brother-in-law actually said that, Africa has 15 to 20% of the world's natural resources, which I fundamentally agree with. Yet, they are still fundamentally cash poor as a nation. Africa is seen as a third world country. Now, if you go to Africa, you realise there's lots of beautiful places and lots of affluence in it. But there is also areas of deprivation. However, internationally, it feels like Africa's this continent on its knees. And what I would say is the notion of being black, we haven't moved away from the fact that black is still at the bottom. Does that make sense? So now with George Floyd, it's certainly going on in America. Yes, I'm sure there's stuff going on in the UK, police brutality, ethnic glass ceilings, etc., etc., etc. But the real question is how to build up, in my opinion, that blackness, and how do we have that confidence in ourselves as a It's really interesting. Sorry, and this is me talking a bit too much.
No, please carry on. I'm interested to hear your view.
My girlfriend and a guy that I spoke to, he's an ophthalmologist. He won now. For people, he's 2 years after foundation school, 2 years after graduating, he's on a training program to be an ophthalmologist. He told me that he didn't realise he was black until he came to the UK. And that's quite a remarkable statement, but also unremarkable, in the sense that once you come to an area where you are the minority, whether it's plus or minus oppression, you are almost brought down to skin colour. But when you're back in your areas, your country, you're just you are the individual. And I think we both agree is being the best that we can be as an individual is where we aim to be. But breaking through those shackles that is one's ethnicity is a huge battle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's especially when you've grown up in an oppressed environment. You use the example of your friend who only realized he was black when he moved to the UK.
As a high schooler,
you can argue that at least when he was young, he had the love, care, and support of his community and the institutions that are built around him, and that means that when he came as a high schooler, he had at least some tools to fight the racism that he encountered.
Whether he knew that was racism at all at that time, you know what I mean? Yeah,
exactly. But when you're looking at the US, and as you said, slavery was only abolished 150 years ago, but that was not the end of slavery. Absolutely. Really.
Exactly.
Because when you look at the 13th Amendment, it actually, which says that nobody can be kept as a slave, it actually has a clause which says unless the person has been convicted of a crime.
Hence the federal prison system.
And now all of a sudden, this clause is being used as a way of keeping slaves. Remember, the U.S. economy was built on slavery. There were lots of things that had to be produced by slaves, and so those who were desperate to have them now could only do them through using people who were incarcerated. And so what do? You start arresting people for very petty offences.
Absolutely, yeah.
And actually there are lots, and I was very surprised to hear this when doing a bit of research, of huge corporations that even to only about 5 or 10 years ago were using slave labor from incarcerated people to produce the majority of their goods. People like Walmart, people like Victoria's Secret, with unpaid workers. And okay, some of those contracts have been withdrawn now, but the American prison system has been privatized to a very astronomical extent. And it becomes no surprise then to see what's happening to the generations now when you take someone from an innocent family and you imprison them, and then all of a sudden you have a child that's grown up in a one-person household, which automatically puts them at a disadvantage. Whether you are as brilliant a mom as you can be, you still cannot compensate for that lack of a fatherly figure in the house. And there's research to support that, and you keep doing that generation after generation after generation, and you end up with a deprived community, and then you blame that community. You start saying that, oh, there's something inherently bad about them. They can't be productive. They can't, and then you obviously hijack the media to portray this figure of the black person as the person that is dangerous, the person that is scary, and then of course the community will be fighting an uphill battle. I'm not saying that it's impossible to come out of there and win, but as we said before, fluidity between classes is not the norm, it's the exception.
It's now to an all-time low. I remember listening to the news, and it said under the Conservative government post Brown, social mobility has dropped from 18% down to 11% now, and it was super low at the start, and now it's even worse now. I completely hear your point, and I think to add to your point, you could argue that yes, kids are being incarcerated, but there's a lack of black success models, except in sport, except in music, and furthermore, black features. So I was just on the news, and Grindr had removed the ethnic
the filter.
origin as a filter.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting that you hear that. So because
I don't know where I stand on that one. Actually, I don't know.
Use that as a point of example. Remember, it just made me laugh because I remember one of my colleagues at work. He's a nurse. He's homosexual. Fine, no problem. He goes, Dapo, some of the nurses find you fit, but I can't see it. No problem. I'm not checking for you as well. No problem.
Don't lie, Dapo. You were offended.
Maybe. 100%.
Hey,
I was like, how can they not like me?
What have I not been doing? All those bench presses.
Do you want me to lighten? Maybe I need to lighten my features. When you came, Sermed, wait. The way all these nurses' hearts were fluttering, I was actually offended. I was like, I'm here now.
They're just trying to make you jealous, Dapo. They're after you. But,
do you think
it's just like when you go for a girl at school and you start punching her because you like her. That is that kind of thing.
I don't know what
they were treating you.
I don't advocate.
Hey, no. I'm just talking. Oh no.
Yeah.
It was a friend.
Yeah, but I think I've maybe lost my train of thought. But there have been times where the black feature has been seen negatively on a black face, but actually positively on another skin colour's face, lips, bum, things like that. You know what I mean? It's just, it feels like the attack on blackness has been on so many different levels now, and at so many different angles. We don't know which fire to stoke.
Absolutely.
But then is the question.
So where do you start?
True.
It's difficult. This is why I can understand people's fear, and I can understand people's anger at what's happened, and the protests that are going on. I want to know exactly what they're campaigning for. I want to have a feel or something tangible that they and as someone who supports the Black Lives Matter movement, it's something that I would want as well. But it's very difficult to just isolate one thing, as you say, because there's just so many different levels of oppression. Where do you start? And awareness certainly is one of the things, and I think that's probably really one of the biggest aims, isn't it? To build awareness, and hopefully the problems will start to erode from there onwards. But
awareness without action is nothing.
Exactly, awareness is, it's inactive. It doesn't change anything. People might. It's just like these adverts that you see on TV for charities that are trying to raise money for the typical African starving child. You see it time after time after time again, and maybe you donate once, maybe you even sign up to donate, but after a while you become numb. And you lose the will to act because you just see it as it's
something else.
It's another starving child. And that's why I really want the movement to gain a very specific purpose of what they would like to achieve, whether that's constructing a board that oversees or the police, or whether it's something else. I don't know. I can't answer all the problems, but
I guess the question is that what the movement should do? Maybe their argument is to spread the awareness and hopefully give people the tools to work out their own answer. Now I'm just extrapolating and trying to put things together, but the answer can't be with a group of people creating a movement. It has to be with the people who believe in the movement and actually believe so strongly that something needs to be done. And I think maybe to answer your question, could the goal really be to get people talking and passionate enough to make a change? Now, my biggest concern is the fact that news moves so quickly. And what is, there's that saying, what's today's news is tomorrow's chip paper.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all angry, we're all passionate, we're all watching 13 Reasons Why. No, not 13 Reasons Why, that's something different. 13th Amendment, now they see us.
Exactly.
We're all reading about Philando Castile, or Breonna Taylor, or we're all reading, and then a week later,
it all just fizzles.
It all fizzles out.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is why I want something specific to come out of it, and I think it is exactly as you say. If you try and sow the seeds across many different facets of society, then the hope is that at least something will get slightly better in each area. But when you're fighting an opponent which is as strong as the kind of American corporate and governmental alliance, then they will fight back,
and you don't know how they're fighting back.
And they will stop progress because their profit and their supporters are all against you. So that's why if you specify something tangible which can be achieved, then at least it can stop this anger just fizzling out into nothing and actually nothing changing, which sadly is what has been happening for
God knows
every single murder to this point. And I know this one has been more publicized because of probably social media and communication than ever. But it still begs the question, what will that change?
I guess you could argue that people are still in the acute mourning phase, and rightly so. So maybe now's not the time to set tangible goals.
Yeah,
but
true.
Maybe we'll see. I think that's the best thing. I think, like I say, one thing that's been beautiful is it's getting people talking about things that we can do to change. I know there's been lots of social media outlets about black businesses to support, because they understand the importance of black business being not just a societal, but a national and international powerhouse to contend with the sort of privatised company. Fair point. The arguments of social justice, that's a fair point. But these are all ideas right now. But I think it's been beautiful to get those people talking. It's been beautiful to get people like me, who was born in Africa, Nigeria, and who could do a bit more to get involved, talking to other Nigerians about what we can do to utilise our skills and improve, trying our best to serve the black community. So actually, maybe that's one point, the servitude of the people who were quote unquote successful. Second and foremost is aiming to be the absolute best that you can be. And I guess that lends its hands on being an international black business as well. And then using what powers you may have, using what skills you may have to try and identify areas to achieve a specific point. Agreed. Now, that's why I say the tangibles of whether Black Lives Matter may answer questions, I'm not sure that is their goal. Maybe. I hope I've answered your question. With my opinion.
No. I mean, certainly I take your opinion on board, absolutely. And there sometimes you don't know what you want to achieve, but you still achieve something. And a lot of great discoveries have happened by accident. Definitely. And I would support anything that would progress us to a more equal society where barriers are dropped down rather than raised up. And I just hope that will happen. And I would want anything that can be done to make that happen, to to actually go forward.
Mm.
I just find it so difficult to see when communities suffering like this, and there not be much empathy from the other side. I know that, well, at least talking about Donald Trump, I don't even know if he's worth a mention.
I'm not so sure.
But I mean,
boy,
that speech that he gave, which supposedly,
which one, Simon?
was I mean, the one I saw about, I don't even want to repeat what he said, but he just clearly lacks any kind of empathy or any kind of understanding into the situation.
And at times it feels like he's not even pretending to try anymore. I think, is it the one you're talking about? Where he talks about George Floyd looking down on him.
Yeah, exactly. It's just...
I've never felt my toes curl up. It was...
Oh, gosh, what a cringe-worthy moment.
Yeah. Boy. But yeah, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Let's not, because that will get very upset.
Yeah, my days.
But I think that's it, and we can, there are lots of lessons to apply and take in, because the African American problem is they are going to find their own answers, and that's what you hope.
Yeah.
And hopefully in the Black British, whatever racial problems that we identify, we will hopefully work in the African problem, whatever questions that we need to identify, we will hopefully find the answers. But you really touched on it, like the system is set out against you when you are poor, and they have no interest in making you rich. They can bastardize you, say you're not working hard enough, or take your universal credit away. But then at the same time, the kids. I remember Andrew Yang was talking about universal credit, wasn't he? Because far too many people were having to work 2-3 jobs in order to make ends meet. That stifles their creativity. They can't go to college or night school in order to best themselves. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's a real systematic issue on lots of levels now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we won't get too political, but all we're doing is just identifying a lot of these problems now, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes that can be part of the solution. As you say, just getting the conversation out there,
an
and building
observational
awareness.
study,
yeah,
epidemiological study on.
But I think you mentioned that you wanted to talk a little bit about how we are finding our careers now.
Yeah. So because we've had a really nice tangent. Because I thought.
I think a very, very necessary one, isn't it?
Absolutely.
In today's day and age.
It's fine. So whether it happened at the end or happened in the middle, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on your uni experience before we go on to where we both are now.
Okay. Yeah.
And how you found uni.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, uni was a very, very good experience for me. I'd say probably because, having the family background that I had and being an academic person, I almost felt like I got took out of an environment where I didn't fit in, and I got put into one where I did. Because all of a sudden I'm surrounded by all of these like-minded people who are very driven, and that certainly wasn't the background that I came from. So then there was also the social side, which was completely different, because when I was in school, to be honest, I outside of school there wasn't much interaction with my colleagues, but as soon as I got to uni, all of a sudden, there are events every day, at least for the first week, having like pajama parties and whatever. And coming from a very conservative, like Islamic cultural school in Bradford, that was definitely completely different area. Which, to be honest, I quite enjoyed seeing that new side of life, and I ended up just embracing it and seeing uni as not just a area for academic improvement, but also for other areas of myself and growing socially as well, which I feel like hopefully I did.
What did you learn most about yourself when you were at university?
Wow, that's a big question.
Well, take it wherever you need to take
okay,
it.
So what did I learn most about myself? I'd say probably that it's okay to show people exactly who I am. Because at least in Bradford, I always felt like because of the sect of Islam that I'm originally from, that I had to hide a part of myself, because it was one that the people I grew up with did not like. So that we had a few people who were from the Wahhabi sect of Islam, and I'm originally from the Shia sect of Islam. And I remember once I was sat on a bus when I was in school, and they said to me, well, actually, no, they didn't say it to me. I had two people who were sat in front of me, and they were talking to each other, and one of them turned to the other and they said, "Bro, my ustad at mosque, he said to me, if I kill a Shia, I'm going to go to heaven, innit?" And I was sat directly behind them as a young boy, and obviously coming from a Shia sect of Islam, was quite worried then about what would happen to me if they found out that I was from that sect. And I know that there were a few other people in my school who were originally Shia Muslims. I have a Shia background, and they were, bullied mercilessly.
Goodness,
so all of a sudden I could be open and nobody cared, and we didn't have any of this divisive rhetoric that was going around, and it was great.
Not being able to exist in this world without any labels, tags, just who you are.
Exactly. Isn't that a beautiful thing to aim towards?
Isn't it?
For everyone.
I guess the question is, how did you go about learning who you are outside of the tags, labels in university?
Well, I think in a way I sort of had my identity before university. And I almost developed on that, and could show people that. And I think that was the main difference. I don't know if I kind of learned more necessarily about who I was, or if my kind of personal identity changed very much. I think that's been quite consistent, over the course of my life, at least from my teenage years onwards. So I guess you can delve deeper into that question and ask, what is it that makes who you are, or your idea of yourself? Because one thing that has changed certainly since university is my priorities.
Absolutely. I guess that's what I was going to touch on, because yes, people's priorities change throughout life, and I'm sure your priorities in 5 to 10 years of time will be different to your priorities now. I think the way I was trying to articulate that question was, how did you feel like a sense of who you are, and what your sense of who you are shaped what career you wanted to choose when you were a student, and how did that change? So just to give a bit of background of to what you wanted to do, and whether that's, how that's changed, whether it's changed at all.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the question I'm asking, rather than
Okay. So, well, I mean, at least if you mean the kind of as a student, I wanted to be a surgeon, and now that has changed. You know, even though I still enjoy surgery and I'm working in surgery now, I'm actually, I'm actually, you know, doing a GP training job in August, and that's what I will be doing eventually. So I guess who I see myself in terms of, you know, how I'm defined by my career has changed. And, you know, there are lots of things that have gone into producing that, you know, the difficulties that I faced during the foundation training, which, you know, obviously we jokingly said before there was a torture camp, but, you know, it really takes you from being a medical student to entering the world of work.
And the world of work is a minefield. It
definitely can be difficult. So that's, you know, one of the main things that helped me to change my priorities. At least, you know, thinking about in the future having a family and having time to be able to see the kids and to raise them properly. You know.
When you say properly, what do you mean?
To be present, to, you know, care about their progression, to turn up to their football games, and show an interest, be an active member in their life.
Would it be fair to say that you've seen experiences of people, maybe within the medical sector, because we can't talk outside, that have suffered personally as a result of their professional success?
Definitely. You know, you only have so much time in life, and everyone chooses what to do with that time based on what their priorities are. And if you choose to spend all of your time at work, then undoubtedly you will have to neglect other areas of your life. There is no two ways about it. You cannot split yourself in two. You cannot be in two places at once, as hard as you try. And the question is, what balance is right for you? Some people prefer a more working heavy balance. Some people prefer a more family oriented balance. And there is no right and wrong answer per se. It's just that too much of the same thing over time can be unhealthy if that is not the way that you are inclined. If that perfectly aligns with your view of life, then absolutely you can go ahead with that. But, you know, that's one of the big reasons why I decided not to be a surgeon, was because I did not see myself being in the hospital day in, day out, and being not present at home, you know, in the future.
That's a fair point.
If family isn't a priority, then
by all means,
you know, that would be a sacrifice that someone would be willing to make. But it's just about being active and having intention with that decision, and fully exploring your options rather than jumping in just based on how you feel, which is, you know, because as a student, I felt like surgery was the right thing for me.
Yeah.
But I really took the time, and that's why I took this year out. And, you know, I don't know about you, Dapo, because you're doing a year out as well. But I felt that this at least helped me to evaluate my options better and get a better understanding of what each career would entail. Because, you know, 1 year to determine the rest of your life, for me, is a small price to pay.
Absolutely. I guess that's quite an interesting point. So, like, certainly doing this trauma job, you realise how much our colleagues are in, even when they're meant to have time off. That's a fair point. I think one thing that can't be understated is if you want to be the top of your field at any one profession, by all means, but it's the sacrifice game and knowing what you're getting involved in. You know, one thing one of my colleagues said, and it's something I wanted to touch on you about, is being a doctor can be a huge part of someone's identity, or it could be a small part of someone's identity. And he wanted to make being a medic a smaller part of his identity, and also have a lot of other things on the side. He wanted to get into sports and fitness. He wanted to get into nutritional and lifestyle and well-being. And yes, there's been a lot of push of lifestyle and well-being in medicine now if you've been on the alternative careers. But he wanted to just say, look, I can be a medic, but I can also have different things that I can bring to the table as well. Is that something that you've considered, diversifying your quote-unquote personal portfolio?
Yeah. Well, I mean, absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head there with where my career goals are going, because, you know, at least my plan in the long term is to be able to kind of phase out, at least to some degree, you know, the medical side, and to get more heavily into business, which I feel gives a much higher return on time invested. You know, we all work for money, and you need that to survive. But at the end of the day, when you're exchanging your time for that money, when you're buying things and paying for things, actually you're paying for it with the hours in your life. You're not paying for it with just that cash. So if you can put in less time to gain that cash, then that means that you're spending less time on paying for the necessary costs that you need to live, and you can therefore free up more time to do things that align more with, you know, your cause or your passion or whatever it is, however you want to kind of serve your community or even the country or the world, depending on how big your goals are. So, you know, one of my biggest internal motivators is that I want something to be different in the world because I was here. And ideally I want that thing to last long after I am gone. And so to build something like that kind of helps people even after I'm taken out of the equation will take a lot of energy and time and resources and to create the environment where that can be done. I'll need something that gives me more money for my time.
Yeah. So would it be fair to say that the reason why you've chosen primary care is because you can still do some good, but actually the personal good and the professional good are almost in equal weighting, assuming the government doesn't start proposing 24/7 to primary care. That's assuming, and then it all becomes shift work for primary care physicians as well.
Yeah, it could be.
It could be. It certainly could be.
They can change however they like.
But I think that's the point. Trying to not be a slave to the system. It's hard because I'm sure you can attest to this. The skills about learning how to be more in control of oneself isn't taught at school. It's something that's learnt through book reading and maybe years of painful experience at time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's quite interesting. Would it be okay to touch on some of your personal projects?
Yeah.
Without obviously don't go into as much detail as you'd like to.
Of course. Yeah.
on top of the side of what you're doing in medicine?
Yeah, so I think the main thing I'm doing on the side now is investing in property, and created an Airbnb, which is called the Safari House, because I thought, if people in Manchester can't go to a safari, then why not bring the safari to them?
Let's not even question the title.
It's an animal themed short-term accommodation. Okay. So I think it was doing quite well, at least before the lockdown, and luckily now I've got a group that are coming there every week, but it gave me great pleasure to spend lots of time and effort to actually build it and now see it come to fruition. So that was quite good.
What sparked the idea?
Well, I'd been investing in property since medical school, and after that I thought I really needed to do something else, that was different. And a girl that I was seeing basically was doing Airbnb with her place, and she basically told me that it's creating almost as much for her 1-bedroom flat as I was getting from a 5-bedroom house, just renting. So I thought, well, in that case, why not try moving this rental to an Airbnb and see how that works? And it worked really well. So I have to thank her a lot for the inspiration.
That you were dating at the time.
Yeah, exactly. No, still am.
Oh, I thought you said that you were dating. So you know what? Thank you for the information.
No.
And bye-bye.
No bye-bye just yet. No bye-bye just yet.
Fine, okay.
So
it's amazing. It's almost serendipity that you kind of met, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. It's helped me to evolve in many ways. So.
Do you set short-term goals, long-term goals? Or do you just say, okay, this is what I'm doing now, let me try and build it up as much as possible?
I'd say both are very important. You need a direction in the long term and a grand plan, if you can put it that way, and then you also need baby steps that are manageable on a day-to-day basis to look towards, and those two come together really nicely. It's just if you have one without the other, it doesn't work. Okay. You need the grand plan to set the baby steps, I think.
Fair. Should we leave it there?
Well, absolutely. Dapo, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and I would shake your hand, hug you, do all kinds of unspeakable actions if COVID were not here, but unfortunately that is all banned.
We're bound by government regulations as much as possible.
Damn you, government.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been insightful.
Thank you so much for your time.
I feel I've spoken a lot about myself.
It's fine. So
thank you for listening. Thank you all at home for listening. If you made it to this point, then give yourself a pat on the back, because you have a really long attention span, especially with us two talking.
So yeah, it's been a pleasure, and hopefully we'll have lots of conversations, both formally and informally, moving forward.
Absolutely. Well, take care.
I hope my girlfriend's not too angry at me now.
Mine too.
I'm
saying I was
seeing her.
I guarantee you.
It's all right. No, it's all right. Of course.
Oh gosh.
All right, great.
Right.
Thank you.
Peace out, guys.
All right, bro. Thank you.